Get it into the
Let's go.
Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call the City of Twinsburg regular council meeting for March 14th, 2023 to order. The time is 7:49 p.m. We're at the Twinsburg Government Center Council Chambers. Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mrs. Walker? Present. Mr. Deeds?
Here.
Mr. Post?
Here.
Mrs. Labby?
Here.
Mr. Fury?
Here.
Mr. Bellin?
Here. Thank you, Shannon. At this time, Mr. Deeds will lead us in the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Please rise.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace as we make decisions that affect all of our residences and businesses and our dedicated city employees. Bless those away from us, serving to protect our country. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Deeds. Moving along to approval of minutes from the regular council meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from the February 28th meeting? And if so, is there any discussion?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes as submitted. Is there a second?
I second.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Fury made a motion, and Mrs. Walker seconded. Any other additional discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes. Approval of the minutes passes 7-0. Shannon, do we have any awards or presentations this evening?
There are none.
And do we have any audience participation this evening?
We do. We have one. Sheila Williams?
All right. Good evening, Ms. Williams.
Well, it's been an exciting week for me. Health Department, I'm going to do that one first. It's a good news and bad news. COVID numbers are down across the board.
That's good.
They're high in nursing homes. And the problem with the nursing home numbers is they're not really required to report. They call us when they have a real major problem. So we've gotten a few phone calls here recently, and the numbers are on the rise in nursing homes. Whether you'll read that in the paper or hear that anywhere else will be very minimal, because this is a moneymaker. And if I say that Grand Twinsburg, I won't use the real name, Grand Twinsburg has had 5 or 6 outbreaks, well, that impacts their bottom line. But I'm saying to people that have people in facilities, pay attention and ask. And if there's a note that says there's been an exposure and you're in the high-risk group, I would encourage you to go home. Call them on the telephone and talk to them, because we're still not out of the woods completely, but we're a whole lot better than we were, and that's a good thing. We're doing a lot of things. I have a Stronger Than You annual financial report for everyone. I'll give Shannon the packet, where you can get a chance to look at it, and she can put some out front for people that want to know what we're doing. We're doing something that's really interesting. It's called the Water Quality Portal. It just was put in place. We still have wells and septics in parts of Twinsburg. A lot of people may not realize that are new, but we do have some communities within our community that still have them. You can go into the portal, you can punch in an address, and you can get all the history of that piece of property. I was excited when I saw the presentation, because I thought about our building department. I thought about how if someone's looking to buy a piece of property and they want to know how the water and the septic has been maintained, all that information is there. It doesn't give complaints yet. That's something that's coming down the line. But any license or anything that they have pulled in relationship to that partial land, they don't have to call on the telephone, get on the computer. They can do all of this independently themselves. So we were all laughing that everyone's looking at their neighbor's property now to see how they're maintaining their wells and their septics, because it can be very pricey, and you don't want to buy a piece of property and not really know the history. And a lot of times, builders are calling us constantly or emailing us constantly, where now they're able to pull it and it's instant. So it's really a cool feature. If for just the fun of it, you want to take a look at it, I would encourage everyone to do that. We're doing new construction. Did anyone get a shot down there through the drive-through?
I did not.
Okay. Well, we had a drive-through, and the drive-through was pretty good. During the very beginning of the pandemic, everybody was trying to figure out what worked best. What we are doing with our COVID monies now is we're opening up the driveway. We're putting a canopy up, and we have equipment that every community is able to borrow for an emergency. Like if you needed 50 cones, I don't know if we have 50 cones, but if you called the health department and said, do you have 50 orange cones? And if we have them, Twinsburg is able to use them temporarily. So we're building utility buildings on the right side of the property that abuts to the church parking lot. And that will allow us to store all this equipment that we've had to purchase the last couple of years to continuously service Summit County. So that's two of the big construction things that they're doing. I have to do a disclaimer now. I don't know, something's happened where I have to say that all the information I'm giving you is from my observation of what I've learned. I'm not representing the health department. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. But I told them I always tell you all what we do when we have a meeting and we talk about things. So the health department is moving right along. I'm gonna give these to Shannon. If you get a chance, just kind of look through it because we operate on a pretty large budget and we do a lot of servicing to all the communities, not just Akron or Twinsburg, but anyone who's in Summit County is available to use our services. We're there to help them. Make sure that if you need your well checked or your water checked, they'll come out or you can bring us some water and we'll check it there. Does anybody have any questions about the health department? Kent State, we had a meeting today, then we had a meeting last month. All the university across the board is down about 15% since COVID has hit. We're working on trying to do what's called FTE, full-time equivalent students, keeping students. The CCP program, which is the college credit courses for high school students, really looks good. All of the schools are doing a fabulous job with feeding kids into Kent State. You know, if you have a ninth grader, I would encourage any parent that's listening to look at their kids maybe going to Kent State for the 2 years. They can come out with an associate's degree and transfer it down to any state university. There was a retirement buyout package, so we're going to lose about 7 teachers from the Kent Geauga campus. Half will be replaced because enrollment is down. So we're looking at that. And then the state has cut funding to all the schools. We only get about 20-25% in funding. The rest of it comes from tuitions, Pell Grants where we're being reimbursed for educating students, and philanthropy. We had a movie today. My son did a movie. We had about, I guess, 75 people there, Death in the City, and it was about the 1964 school integration in Cleveland and how the impact, just killing people, and it was interesting. A lot of people were talking and asking questions because they were not aware. Walt Hoffman said it was less than 2 miles from Shaw High School what was going on, and there was no conversation about it. That he learned so much today. So that's one of the good things that we're doing. If you want to take a class or you want to teach a class, please contact the campus because they're always looking to create programs for our seniors and for students. Like they need someone in education to be a teacher coach, I guess for lack of a better word. They'll watch the student teacher and then help her to be a better person or him to be a better person. So there are always part-time openings and we're always looking for good help. But the campus is moving along. We're busting at the seams even though enrollment is down. And if you have a chance, I would encourage you to go over and take a look at the building if you haven't been to the building. And the same thing with the health department. They're really doing a lot of good things, and it services our community. And that's my reports this evening. And thank you for charter review. Oh, Health and Wellness Fair. This is going to be at the University of Akron, and it is on April 10th from 11 to 2, and the Metro Transit System is offering a free ride to it. So if you know anyone that's interested, I'll give this to her too to post out front. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Informative as always. That moves us on to council communication and committee reports. Mr. Bellin, we'll start with you this evening.
Good evening. Thank you. On March the 6th, I attended an evening of interviews for the open board and commissions positions that Mr. Barr mentioned earlier. I too would like to thank everybody who showed interest and interviewed for those roles. We continue to be remarkably lucky to have such talented people willing to give their time and talents to the city of Twinsburg. I also attended this evening's public hearings about fences and signs. I attended this evening's safety committee meeting. We had a rather lengthy discussion about several intersections around town, safety-wise, specifically Timothy and Glenwood, as well as Jennifer Drive and Lake Plata. I think there's going to be some follow-up discussions with the mayor's office coming out of that, but it really was a good discussion, and I would like to thank everybody that came out to participate. We also got an emergency operations update from Chief Basso, as well as a brief update about the weather warning sirens, additional conversation coming in the future. The next safety committee meeting will be on Tuesday, May the 9th at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. Next finance committee meeting will be on Tuesday, March 28th, 6 p.m. in council chambers. And the next meeting of the Public Works Committee will be on April 11th, 6 p.m., also here in chambers. That concludes my report for this evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bellin. Mrs. Labby, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Barr. Thank you. On Wednesday, March 1st, I attended the Twins Days meeting. As of this day, 444 registered twins. The next meeting will be Wednesday, April 5th at the Twins Days office. The March 2nd ARB meeting was canceled due to lack of agenda items. Next meeting is this coming Thursday, the 16th at 6 p.m. I also attended the boards and commissions interviews, and we have exceptional people in Twinsburg. Each candidate who came in for some, we're like, wow, they were great, and then, wow, they were great too. So it was very difficult for us to narrow down. Some people we wanted for multiple committees. He would be great there, she would be great there. So thank you for everyone who coming out. It made our job a little easier. It was not an easy job, but it made our little job easier with all the talent that we had. The March 9th meeting CIC was also canceled. I went to the Jedi meeting last evening. We essentially recapped our 2 February events for Black History Month. So that was just the gist of the Jedi meeting yesterday, and I attended the safety meeting this evening as well. That's all I have to report today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Labby. Mr. Deeds, good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Very well, sir.
Okay, so there is nothing on the Board of Zoning Appeals agenda for this month. That meeting was actually canceled, so the next Board of Zoning Appeals meeting will be April 26th here in council chambers. I also attended the Safety Committee meeting this evening at 6 o'clock. It looks like we'll have quite a bit more discussion for the residents of Lake Plata and Ethan's Green regarding traffic control measures there, as well as a little bit more conversation we need to have on weather warning sirens. Get that right. Next meeting will be here, or next scheduled meeting will be here on May 9th. And then I was also at the meeting where we chose new board and commission members, and I would like to welcome all new and returning members. As you've heard from everyone else, it's amazing how many talented people we have here in Twinsburg. We really have a plethora of talented people, and thank all of you who applied. Not all of those who applied could make it, but we thank you to try again. And that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Deeds. Mr. Post, good evening.
Well, thank you, sir. My committees have not met since our last council meeting, but the next Glen Eagles Advisory meeting is on Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday at 6:30, the 21st, and the Planning Commission, the planning meeting is this Monday, the 20th at 7 o'clock, and I'll be there at those. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Post. Mrs. Walker, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. I did attend the Community Relations Board meeting at, it used to be Cable 9, if, you know, I'm probably dating myself. And it was good to see friends again because, you know, I know some of them personally, and but they've changed so much now that I'm just going to say it, I don't think they need a Twinsburg council rep for them. That's my feeling, and that's how I felt. I think they could do well without our input. I also, the Environmental Commission, as I mentioned before, they had a meeting, didn't have enough for a quorum, so we just stood around and talked for like 45 minutes, and then we left. It was good. And I also attended the JEDI meeting yesterday. It was very good, a good meeting. And I understand that the superintendent of schools, Kathy Powers, wants to be a part of our JEDI meeting. So, Mayor, if you want to invite her or, you know, because she does want to be a part of it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker. Mr. Fury, good evening.
Good evening. Earlier today, the Tax Incentive Review Committee met. It consists of a representative of the school, a representative of the county, the mayor, our finance department, economic development, and residents. And the purpose of that meeting is to review TOP and CRA agreements to make sure that the people we've given tax abatements to are living up to their estimated growth. The TOP agreements brought in payroll of $45 million, and our CRA agreements were over $70 million. So these are viable programs. And if people aren't performing, we amend them or cancel the program. So we've also had discussions on how to come up with a more comprehensive way to judge performance in percentages that we're looking at, and we'll bring that to council to discuss in the future. That's an annual meeting, and again, on CRAs, which is property tax, TOP agreements or income tax, the school system is reimbursed by the city for the abatement amount. So that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fury. I had every intention of attending the public safety meeting this evening. My apologies to the members of the committee, Mr. Deeds and Mr. Bellin, for my absence. I had a sick child at home and sometimes duty calls. So my apologies to the residents as well that could not be here in a timely manner for that. Other than that, none of my committees have met outside of our boards and commission interviews. And again, as stated by everyone up here, just thank you to everybody who applied. What a great turnout. That concludes my report. Mr. Mayor, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Barr, and good evening, everybody. Yeah, I just have a couple quick items. One, we're back to ribbon cuttings again. We had another ribbon cutting last week. The company is called Techie Ohio. And what Techie Ohio does, they buy, sell, and repair computers as well as cell phones. They are, and I'll look right at their website to tell you that Techie expert technicians know how to fix all devices from iPads, iPhones, MacBooks, and Windows laptops. Google Pixel phones and Samsung devices. They also sell them too. It's a really nice little store that they opened up here in town. It's almost like a small Apple store, truthfully, when you go in there. And he's got quite a bit of equipment there and a lot to sell, and some really good people on staff that'll take care of any equipment that you need. And even if you break your screen, if you break the screen on your computer or your phone, they can replace those for you as well. So it's right here in town. So welcome to Techie, and we're glad to have you here and be able to partner with you in the city of Twinsburg and make your investment here. We appreciate you. I've been going through, we've been going through finance director interviews, and we've been interviewing. We've got one last one tomorrow, but we've got it down so far to about 2 interviewees that we're going to be calling back for a second interview. So hopefully before long I'll be able to bring somebody in, introduce to council, have you ask any questions that you have. I'd like to go through that procedure with you as well. And then we all make that decision collectively to make sure that we get the right person again. Just like we did the last 2 times we hired a finance director. So looking forward to that. And finally, I just want to mention again, we'll be delivering the State of the City address on March 23rd at the Hilton. Starts at 7:30 in the morning. It's sponsored by the Twinsburg Chamber of Commerce. It's somewhat of a fundraiser for the chamber. They charge $25 per ticket. There'll be a nice breakfast buffet. And then that starts at 7:30. The doors will open and the presentation will start about 8:15. So I'd like to welcome anybody there that would like to come and see what's going on in the city of Twinsburg. We will be delivering the address, and hopefully everybody will walk away with some really good information and see a bright future like we do. Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have any department heads reporting this evening, sir?
We do. We have Chief Mason.
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
Okay, it's a brief report for the month of February. Total calls for service for the month were 2,691. It brings us to a total of 5,481 for the year. Some numbers of notes regarding calls. We have 4 calls of theft, 4 incidents of theft, 9 of possession of drugs, drug-related offenses, 2 domestic violence incidents, 12 incidents of driving under suspension or without a valid license, 3 of operating a vehicle under the influence of alcohol and/or drugs, 3 incidents of stopping after an accident or hit skip, 7 warrant arrests, and 2 robberies. We had a total of 208 traffic stops, 58 total written warnings given, and 8 parking citations, excuse me. We had a total number of individuals of 71 that were either arrested and/or cited on a total of 120 counts. As far as traffic accidents, we had 26 for the month. We had 20 that were non-injury, 6 that were injury crashes, 4 were on private property, and 0 fatalities. And that is all I have.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Next, we have Chief Morgan.
All right. Chief Morgan, good evening. Good evening.
For the month of February, the fire department responded to 275 calls for assistance. That brings us up to 591 for the year. That's 7% behind last year's pace. But last January was a record month, so that kind of skews the numbers a little bit. And about 28% of those were overlapping calls with other events. We completed 48 inspections through the course of the month and also worked on 2 fire investigations. Personnel completed 508 hours of training during 90 different training opportunities. We had 8 public education events, which contacted about 100 people. 5 of those were CPR classes that have resumed, which totaled 72 residents that participated in those classes. As was mentioned earlier, the weather warning sirens were tested on the 4th. This month, 6 of them worked properly. Most of the improvement was due to some retuning of some of the radios, communications equipment. On the personnel side of things, we did have a captain's promotional test that was certified by Civil Service. So we have that ready for the next opening that comes about. And we also received permission from Civil Service to move ahead with an entrance exam, as we do forecast the need for some hiring as we expect a retirement in the not-too-distant future. On the facility side of things, the remodeling of Station 1's downstairs kitchen is continuing. Parts are on back order, a common theme. And we also have undertaken to have the Station 1 overhead bay doors assessed. There's starting to be some significant failure of the bricks, and the lintels are rusting out. So we'll have to take some measures to repair that in the not-too-distant future. And some projects that are still in process was the emergency operations plan. We're still are reviewing that and making updates to it, even though we made the suggestion tonight of taking some larger steps in that direction. And I want to let you know that late last month, we were visited by ISO. That's the Insurance Services Organization, and they do evaluation of the fire protection capabilities of the communities. It evaluates the fire department, the water system, and the communication systems, and community. I'm forgetting the words in the acronym now, but our inspection, community risk reduction, that's the word I was looking for, community risk reduction plan. And so they were here on the 23rd to do the assessment, and we expect to report on that in a couple of weeks. Our last rating, we were a 4 and a 4X, where on a scale of 10 to 1, 10 being the worst, 1 being the best, and the X is the indication of the areas of the district, which ours includes the township, that are unhydranted, so that affects the rating. So we are anticipating there might be improvement in that, and as a result, there may be some improvement in home insurance and business insurance rates for the community. So that's also the last thing, just a reminder, and thank you. You were all witness to our swearing in of 3 new employees last month, so that is a real, we're very happy about that as we add to our part-time roster, and we continue to assess candidates to fill the roster out even further. And that ends my report.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Nate, did you have a report? We have Nate.
All right.
And that'll be it.
Good evening, Nate.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Law Director. I'll keep mine short and sweet tonight as well. I just wanted to provide an update. I know I've mentioned multiple times that we are working on repairing our Vector truck. It's currently halfway through its repair process. It's going better than anticipated. Once we get the second half of the repair work completed, hopefully within the next couple weeks, we'll actually get to put the truck back together, and it'll be back on the road in service for another 5 to 8 years. Over the last month, we entered into the general engineering service contract with B&N. We started working towards getting the design scope itself laid out, working with the law director to review it, engineering to review it as well, so that we can enter into that. Once the EPA hopefully approves our loan that we submitted last month, the beginning of this month. We also started working with the engineering department for a sanitary trunk line that runs through the north side of Center Valley Park. They have a second set of professional engineering eyes to look on the design of that. I've been working with the EPA on the WPCLF loan application. I had submitted the city's response for some comments that the EPA had, just some basic questions on our preliminary design that was completed at the end of last year. They did accept all of our responses, so that's good. And I'm just working on them. I actually got an email today with about 4 questions, and I work with Jennifer in finance to cross a couple T's and dot a couple I's with that. So that's we also currently have 2 classes that are going to be coming in May to have wastewater employees as well as service employees complete some confined space training so that our employees are aware and safe when they go into these different areas in the wastewater plant and the collection system, to bring them up to speed with that. And that's all I have tonight.
Great, Nate. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nate. That's it, sir.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Moving along to legislation. Another, again, several items this evening. We'll try and get through these as expeditiously as possible. We'll start with ordinance 23, 2023.
An ordinance amending both Chapter 135 and 925 of the codified ordinances of the City of Twinsburg regarding the Parks and Recreation Department.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 23, 2023. May I have a second?
A second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Any further discussion on 23? Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023 passes 7-0. Moving along to ordinance 24, 2023.
An ordinance amending Chapter 1164 of the codified ordinances of the City of Twinsburg regarding fences.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 24, 2023. May I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Walker seconds. Any further discussion on 24, 2023?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up in caucus, we mentioned about the height restrictions of the fences, and currently it's at 42 to 48 inches. And I'd like to make a motion that we change 1164.07A and B to both reflect that pool fences shall be at least 48 inches. So the key is that they're at least 48 inches in height. Is there a second on that?
I'll second that.
All right, Ms. Labby seconds. Shannon, call the roll.
Any
discussion on
the
that?
amendment?
Any discussion on the amendment? All right, call the roll.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes. And so the amendment passes 7-0.
Adopt as amended.
So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 24, 2023 as amended. May I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Walker seconds. Any additional discussion on the amended ordinance? Hearing none. Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Ordinance 2024, 2023 passes as amended, 7-0. Moving along to ordinance 25, 2023.
An ordinance amending Chapter 1173 of the codified ordinances of the City of Twinsburg regarding signs.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 25, 2023. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Any discussion on 25, 2023?
The only change of this ordinance and the sign ordinance is it makes temporary signs 40 days instead of 60 days. And that's the only change.
Thank you, Mr. Fury. Any additional discussion? Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
No.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ordinance 25, 2023 passes 6-1. Ordinance 28, 2023.
The permanent appropriation ordinance for 2023 approved by council from estimates submitted by the mayor, providing for the ordinary expenses and other necessary expenses of the City of Twinsburg, Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023, and declaring an emergency.
All right, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 28, 2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. As discussed in caucus, we want to ensure that we meet the county deadline of March 31st for submission of our appropriations ordinance. We have the possibility of not having enough council members at the March 28th meeting, so we were presenting this for a vote this evening. Again, our charter requires us to have 5 votes or a supermajority to pass something as an emergency. Any other discussion? Shannon, would you call the roll on the emergency clause, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Fury,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Post.
Yes.
The suspension of the three reading rule passes 7-0. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2023 as an emergency. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Any additional discussion? Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Bellin.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Labby,
Yes.
Mr. Post,
Yes.
Mr. Fury,
Yes.
Mr. Deeds.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023 passes as an emergency 7-0. Ordinance 2023.
An ordinance authorizing the city to both apply for and accept an Energized Community Program grant administered through Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council.
Ordinance 2023 now stands on its second reading. Ordinance 2023.
An ordinance amending Chapter 149 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Twinsburg regarding fees and deposits.
Ordinance 2023 now stands on its second reading. We're moving on to some resolutions, starting with Resolution 2023.
A resolution appointing 3 members to the Architectural Review Board.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2023. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Deeds seconds. The 3 residents appointed to the board are Valerie Wales, Gurman Katra, and David Markovitz. Is there any other discussion on 2023? Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Deeds,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Post,
Yes.
Mr. Bellin,
Yes.
Mr. Fury,
Yes.
Mrs. Labby.
Yes.
Resolution 2023 passes 7-0. Resolution 2023.
A resolution appointing 2 members to the Board of Building and Zoning Code Appeals.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2023. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. The residents appointed to this board are Shannon Leonard and Ed Kanzler. Any further discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Bellin,
Yes.
Mr. Fury,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Labby,
Yes.
Mr. Deeds,
Yes.
Mr. Post.
Yes.
Resolution 2023 passes 7-0. Resolution 2023.
A resolution appointing 5 members to the Capital Improvement Board.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2023. May I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Walker seconds. The residents being appointed to this board are Shelley Shipley, John Blust, Sharon Price, Maureen Stauffer, and Chiran Patel. Is there any further discussion? Shannon, would you-
I'd like to thank Sharon Price for agreeing again to do that. We didn't have someone for Ward 3, so we had to.
Yeah, it was
ask
very nice of her to step in,
Yes,
absolutely.
I'd like to thank her for that.
Any additional discussion on 37? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Post,
Yes.
Mr. Fury,
Yes.
Mr. Bellin,
Yes.
Mrs. Labby,
Yes.
Mr. Deeds.
Yes.
Resolution 37, 2023 passes 7-0. Moving along to Resolution 38, 2023.
A resolution creating the 2023 Charter Review Commission of the City of Twinsburg and appointing the 9 members.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 38, 2023. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. The residents being appointed to this commission are Tom Barney, Angelo Carciapolo, Sean Castillo, Chris Feldman, Adam Gakowski, Mark Little, Courtney Ross, Dwayne Smith, and Sheila Williams. Any further discussion? Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Bellin.
Yes.
Mr. Deeds.
Yes.
Mrs. Labby.
Yes.
Mr. Fury,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Post.
Yes.
Resolution 38, 2023 passes 7-0. Resolution 29, 2023.
39.
39, correction, I'm sorry. Resolution 39, 2023. Thank you, Mr. Bell.
A resolution appointing 4 members to the Environmental Commission.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 39, 2023. May I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Walker seconds. Residents appointed to this commission are Susan Metzel, Jonah Piquette, Virginia Schmidt, and Michael Walton. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Post,
Yes.
Mr. Bellin,
Yes.
Mr. Deeds,
Yes.
Mrs. Labby,
Yes.
Mr. Fury.
Yes.
Resolution 39, 2023 passes 7-0. Moving along to Resolution 40, 2023.
A resolution appointing 3 members to the Parks and Recreation Commission.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 40, 2023. May I have a second?
I will second.
Mrs. Labby seconds. The residents being appointed to this commission are Tom Wyrick, Deb Peltz, and Charles Adia. Any further discussion? Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Resolution 40, 2023 passes 7-0. Resolution 41, 2023.
A resolution appointing 3 members to the Planning Commission.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 41, 2023. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Deeds seconds. The residents being appointed to this commission are Ed Hogler, Mark Cohen, and Steve Shebeck. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, Shannon, would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Resolution 41, 2023 passes 7-0. Congratulations to all that were appointed to boards and commissions, and thank you to everyone who came out. Moving along to Ordinance 42, 2023. An ordinance that's you.
Go for it.
No, go for it. That's your part.
An ordinance authorizing the City of Twinsburg to join the Community University Education Purchasing Council of Governments and declaring an emergency.
All right, thank you, Shannon. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place Ordinance 42, 2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Shannon, would you call the roll, please, on the emergency?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
All right, suspension of the 3 reading rule passes 7-0. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt Ordinance 42, 2023 as an emergency. May I have a second?
Second.
Yep.
Pick one.
Mr. Deeds seconds. Any further discussion? I just know we want to get this passed so that we can start saving money. Any other discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Ordinance 42, 2023 passes as an emergency, 7-0. Ordinance 43, 2023.
An ordinance amending Chapter 929 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Twinsburg regarding trees.
Ordinance 43, 2023 now stands on its first reading. Ordinance 44, 2023.
An ordinance amending Chapters 1174.05D and 1195.05D5L of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Twinsburg regarding driveway construction standards.
Ordinance 44, 2023 now stands on its first reading as well. Ordinance 45, 2023.
An ordinance establishing salaries, wages, and employment descriptions for certain employees of the city and updating classifications of employees to be known as the salary ordinance and declaring an emergency.
All right, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place Ordinance 45, 2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Any discussion on the emergency? We just want to get this done so we can update these pay scales, especially for our seasonal hires. It's important to get that done as we, spring is upon us, as evidenced by the weather outside. If there's no additional discussion, Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Suspension of the 3 reading rule passes 7-0. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt Ordinance 45, 2023 as an emergency. May I have a second?
I will second.
I yield.
Mrs. Labby seconds. Any additional discussion on the salary ordinance, 45? Hearing none, Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ordinance 45, 2023 passes as an emergency, 7-0. That concludes legislation. Moving along to unfinished business, new business, and miscellaneous. Mr. Deeds, do you have anything this evening?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Bellin.
Yeah, I would just like to thank the members of CERT for showing their new trailer this evening. It is a really impressive mobile command center that they've created. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bellin. Mr. Post, anything this evening?
Yes, I just want to add that every year we all see flags all around the community in people's yards and businesses, and they're put out every year for 5 different holidays. They're put out for Memorial Day, Flag Day, Independence Day, Patriots Day, and Veterans Day. That's done through the Rotary Club of Twinsburg, and it's called the Parade of Flags, and that's starting up again this year. If you want to order your flags, you can go to twinsburgflags.com. And it is, you have to order by April 30th. Want to thank the Scouts also. The Scouts are a big help in putting those flags out. Absolutely. And they get, they make a little bit for helping out, and so does the CERT team. So that money goes to help lots of different organizations, the CERT team, and CERTs, and the Scouts, which is great. If you have any questions, you can email twinsburgflags@gmail.com, or you can just go to twinsburgflags.com to order, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Post. They say to lead by example. I've already signed up. So
You are the man.
appreciate you mentioning that.
The man.
Mr. Fury, do you have any new business or miscellaneous?
Already bought my flag, and I'd like to wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fury.
Safe one.
Mrs. Walker.
I have nothing, thank you.
All right. Mrs. Labby.
I have nothing, I wanted to, my best wishes for your dad, Bill. I mean,
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Appreciate that.
it's a big deal when it's your dad, and the trauma that he went through was pretty bad, so wish
Thank
him
you.
all the best of luck.
And thank you to all of you. I appreciate you. I think you did a magnificent job on the boards and commissions this year. I appreciate, I wasn't able to be a part of that this year, and thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Anything else, Ms. Labby? All right, thank you. Mr. Scafidi.
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
All right, Mr. Vazana.
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
Mrs. Collins.
Nothing.
I will keep it brief. I do have just 2 quick items, actually just one. I will be traveling next meeting, which is March 28th. I believe Ms. Walker is also going to be out of town. I have discussed with the mayor and Mr. Bellin, unless there's any objection or discussion, Mr. Bellin has volunteered to run the meeting, if that's okay with everyone on council. I mean, we don't need a formal vote, but if there's any issues, let's discuss it now before we're not here. I'll think of everybody when it's 87 degrees.
Yeah, I will too.
Especially, again, with this beautiful January weather, so. But again, my apologies that I cannot attend. I don't like to miss these meetings. We don't have any absent members to excuse this evening. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:36 PM. May I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Walker, second. Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you to all who attended this evening.
Hey.